Welcome to the Narrative Mindset Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I really appreciate it, number one, and I would appreciate it if when you get time, you go back and view previous episodes just to get what I talk about and my content, see what it's about and things of that nature. Appreciate it. Today, I'm going to discuss something called discipline and consistency. For a long time, I confused motion with progress. I thought just being busy meant I was doing something with my life. But discipline showed me the difference. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't care about motivation. It doesn't care if you feel like it or not. It just sits there every day, waiting for you to show up. And most of the time, I didn't. I had dreams. I had plans. But they were sitting in a notebook collecting dust because I was waiting for the perfect moment, a spark, a feeling, a sign. But that perfect moment never came. The truth is, it never does. You start when you're tired, when it's inconvenient, when nobody's watching. You could easily quit, but something in you decides not to. That's discipline. Not the loud kind that posts progress online, but the quiet kind that nobody sees. The one that gets up early when your body's begging you to sleep. The one that says no to comfort, even when comfort feels like the only thing you've earned. For me, it took hitting a wall more than once to understand that discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. It protects your purpose from your emotions. Because feelings fade fast. You can feel inspired one morning and defeated by nightfall. But discipline doesn't care about that. It's what keeps you moving when everything else in you wants to stop. I've had moments where I thought I was doing enough. I thought showing up once or twice meant I was consistent. But discipline humbled me. It reminded me that consistency isn't about big bursts of effort. It's about repetition. Boring, quiet, unseen repetition. The kind that builds something solid over time. And I'll be honest. I've failed at this more than I've succeeded. I've made excuses, told myself, I'll start tomorrow. And believe it every time. But tomorrow doesn't care about your excuses. It only remembers your habits. The thing about inconsistency is, it doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps up on you. One skipped day turns into a week, then a month. And before you know it, you're standing in the same place you swore you'd never be again. I've lost a lot of time to that circle. I can't get back. Opportunities I watched pass because I wasn't ready when they came. And that's on me, nobody else. That's what stings the most. Realizing every setback had my fingerprints on it. I wanted results, but I didn't want the routine. I wanted success, but I wasn't built for the schedule. I wanted freedom, but I wasn't disciplined enough to earn it. There was a point where I stopped blaming circumstances, people, or luck. I looked in the mirror and I had to face the fact I had habits of someone who wanted to change, not someone who was changing. That's a hard truth. It's easier to talk about growth than live. Easier to dream than discipline yourself for the dream. Discipline doesn't care about your intentions. It only measures your follow-through. You can mean well all day, but if you don't show up, it means nothing. Consistency is proof of what you actually value. There were days I woke up ready to quit everything. I told myself I was tired, that maybe I wasn't built for this, that maybe it wasn't just my time. But deep down I knew it wasn't that I wasn't capable, it's that I wasn't consistent. I was waiting for results I hadn't earned. And that's where I started to change. Not with motivation, but with small, unglamorous steps, setting alarms, keeping promises to myself, doing things even when the excitement was gone. It wasn't about perfection. It was about not giving up when it got boring. Because boredom is where most people lose. We crave newness. We chase feelings. But discipline is repetition, doing the same thing until it becomes who you are. And then something starts to shift. At first, it's almost invisible. You're showing up day after day, and nothing feels different. The scale hasn't moved. The inbox is still full. The results haven't appeared. But inside, something is changing. Your mind is getting stronger. Your choices start to line up with your intentions. You stop arguing with yourself as much. You start trusting yourself again. That's the quiet power of consistency. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It doesn't look glamorous. But after months, sometimes years of showing up, it starts to feel like armor. You wake up and you know, without questioning, that you can handle what the day throws at you. You built that confidence, not from luck, not from motivation, but from approval. But from the fact that you kept your word to yourself. And it's humbling because it reminds you how little is owed to you in life. Nobody hands out results just because you want them. Nobody applauds discipline when it's quiet, when it's invisible. You don't get credit for consistency. You just get the payoff, slowly, steadily, undeniably. And it's worth everything. I've also seen how discipline teaches patience. When you commit to consistency, you start seeing the world differently. You stop expecting instant gratification. You stop judging yourself for being behind. You learn that the real progress takes time and that growth isn't a sprint. It's a process, a layering of tiny wins that eventually becomes something unshakable. And it's not easy. I've had moments where I skipped, where I fell off the path entirely, and it hurt more than I expected. Not because the world punished me, but because I punished myself. I lost trust in myself. I questioned if I could ever follow through. But that's the thing. Discipline isn't about never failing. It's about picking yourself up every time you do. It's about saying, I'll keep going, even when it's hard, even when I feel like quitting. Over time, consistency becomes more than a habit. It becomes part of who you are. It shapes your identity. You're no longer the person who makes promises and breaks them. You're the person who shows up, even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching, even when the world doesn't recognize it. That's where real power lies. Not in motivation, not in talent, not in luck, but in the quiet, steady repetition that proves to yourself day after day that you can be trusted, that you can depend on yourself, that you are capable of more than you thought. I've learned that discipline also teaches humility. It reminds you that nothing worth having comes easy. The shortcuts don't build anything solid. That's the only way forward is through the grind. Not just the physical work, but the mental work, the emotional work, the self-control, the accountability. And the more you practice it, the more you see it in every part of your life, your work, your health, your relationships, even how you speak to yourself. And it's not glamorous. It's not instant. There are still days when I feel lazy. There are days when I want to quit. But I've learned to separate those feelings from my actions. Feelings are temporary. Discipline is permanent. And that separation changes everything. I think the hardest lesson for me was learning to accept the discomfort that comes with consistency. It's uncomfortable to show up when no one notices. It's uncomfortable to say no to immediate pleasure for long-term gain. It's uncomfortable to admit you messed up yesterday and start over today. But that discomfort is part of the process. It's the refining fire that turns effort into results, repetition into identity. And here's the thing. Nobody owes you consistency. Nobody owes you results. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to show up, to keep your word, to respect your goals, to honor your potential. And that's a responsibility I've learned to take seriously. Because every day, I don't see the cost. Lost time, lost trust, lost momentum. And so I keep showing up every day in small ways and in big ways. I make choices that align with the person I want to be. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's boring, even when I'd rather do anything else. I remind myself that discipline isn't about instant results. It's about building a life I can trust, a life where I know I can depend on myself. I've made mistakes, I've slipped, I've broken promises to myself and had to rebuild the trust that I lost. But taking responsibility for that has been part of the growth. Discipline isn't about never failing. It's about never giving up. It's about showing up again and again and again until it becomes who you are. Consistency has changed how I see everything. It's changed my mindset, my confidence, my patience. It's taught me value and how to respect the quiet victories over flashy ones. It's taught me that peace doesn't come from ease, but from knowing you've done your work, even when no one else is watching. And the beauty of this, the more consistent I become, the more I see the world in a different light. I notice the small wins. I notice the opportunities I would have missed before. I notice myself trusting me again. And that trust ripples into every part of life. So I'm still growing, still learning, still testing myself against the resistance that will always be there. But I'm proud. Proud not because it's easy, not because I'm perfect, but because I've chosen to keep moving forward, to keep my word to myself, to keep building discipline into every corner of my life. Discipline and consistency aren't just habits. They're whom I'm becoming. And every day I show up, I prove it to the world. Yes, but more importantly, to myself. And that's enough. That's real and that's life.